7 days from the moment this video goes live, the doors to CitizenCon 2953 will open. That's if you don't believe in technical difficulties.
Of course, we had a schedule published on our website. If any one of you can read a clock, you may notice that we are not going to adhere to that schedule.
And if you haven't seen it yet, I've got the schedule and plenty of ideas of what we're going to see. This event aims to be a mixture of 2017's in-person, exciting, hype-building pre-3.0 show and last year's to-the-point, informative, panel-heavy show. We are mostly removed from the old days of hype-heavy marketing first material. Over the years, things have gotten more realistic and focused on what's actually planned for the game in the next couple of years. While last year's highlights are going to be presented this year further on in development, presenting a less hyped set of panels, this points to a focus on the near future gameplay as opposed to new exciting designs. Rather than jumping ahead to more unknown topics of what developers want to do, the panels are focusing on the stuff we already know is in development for Update 4.0. This might make it feel like an inside Star Citizen, but that's kind of what they're supposed to be. And it draws a highlight to the slow progress made on server meshing following the difficult launch of persistent entity streaming in 3.18. But it presents a more believable event that bodes well for the future, I think. That's all to say, they stick to the schedule. From server meshing to a new star map, to pyro planets, to engineering gameplay, we're about to cover a lot. So let's get into it. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. This segment is going to open the show. With an hour-and-a-half window possibly dedicated, this might run longer than other panels. As you can probably grasp from the name of the channel, the Future of StarEngine, this one will largely cover advancements in their game engine. The game engine development is a large part of the reason this game has taken as long as it has, so this might include information on some of the bigger systems. The game renderer, progress on the Vulkan API, and work going into enabling ray tracing in Star Citizen will probably see some mentions here. The Rastar tool or other location building tools will likely see a focus during this segment as well. This would also be an opportunity for a robust update on server meshing and efforts going into that. Given the lack of updates throughout the rest of the year, I expect one at this event. It may be during this panel, or it might be at the end. What I'm hoping we also see during this panel are other crucial tools in their game engine. Quantum is the entire back-end simulation that we still know disappointingly little about in terms of a rollout. I'm also hoping we hear about the Maelstrom damage system, which is meant to apply physicalized damage to armor, guns, cargo ships, and other interactable objects in the game. That being said, there's nothing in the description that points to either of these mechanics. This panel begins at 11 AM PST and has an hour-and-a-half reserved for it. For the rest of this video, I'll refer to all times in PST as that's where the event is taking place. Resource Management. First introduced in 2020, updated at CitizenCon 2022, and laid out in full design detail as an engineering profession earlier this year. Resource Management might seem like the system that drives the engineering profession, but it will affect gameplay in ships, vehicles, outposts, cities, underground facilities, and space stations. It's one of the main systems in the game that all players will have to interact with at some point. However, your level of involvement will be up to you. The entirety of what this gameplay entails with animations, effects, and UI is what I expect to see during this panel. It may be rough, but I think this will be a pretty good look at life support, gravity controls, fire hazard and suppression, ship roles, malfunctions, tuning, and the overall engineering profession. What I do hope we also see, or at least hear about here, is how this gameplay can be applied to content, especially in ground location and space stations through missions. I also hope we get more information regarding the rollout of this system and the steps involved. Between master modes, Maelstrom, control surfaces, and this engineering gameplay, there are a lot of pretty substantial changes coming to ships that are gonna require reworks. It'd be nice to know how that's gonna happen, but maybe we have to wait for the ship panel to hear more about it. And while this panel takes place at 12:30 PM, we actually go to a cosplay competition and then a lunch break before getting to the next panel. Now, I won't be live streaming the show this year. I'm gonna be on the show floor at the convention, so subscribe here if you want to see that real-time content and updates from the floor. We'll be covering the in-game tournament that's taking place at this event, as well as the cosplay event that takes place in between this panel and the last. But we're here for the features, so let's talk ship. This is the only panel that occurs at every CitizenCon, because Star Citizen is actually kinda all about the ships. If you didn't catch my recent podcast episode, there are currently more than 15 ships or vehicles possibly at various stages of development. Many of these ships are from the backlog of ships that CIG has failed to deliver after introducing them over the last 10 years. Some of the ships we might see during this panel are the Argo SRV, Crusader Spirit series, Origin G12 series, RSI Polaris, and an unannounced ship or vehicle that might go straight to flyable. There are plenty of other ships that are in development we might see, but I'm hesitant to say we will see them considering some ships got shown at a sprint report just a couple weeks before this event, so I'm not sure there would be much to update us on. In addition to all this, the panel will be about the ship pipeline's new practices and the lore behind ship development. Lore is a pretty strong driving force in Star Citizen, and the various ship manufacturers abide pretty strongly by what the lore of the game dictates. I'm not sure what the focus may be in invoking that lore, but we'll see. As for the pipeline, this is where I hope we get some reassuring news about how they plan on tackling all the ship reworks that we're due for. This one takes place at 3 PM and gets a window of about an hour. Travel with us to the forefront of navigation with a look at the evolution of UI features that help players view, engage, and interact with their surroundings. This could be it. I was a bit premature earlier this year, but there's almost no doubt a new star map is coming, and it'll be with 4.0. The addition of a new star map, new abilities like saving AR waypoint markers, and other navigational tools are likely a focus of this panel, being the last of day 1 at 4 PM. This map is meant to be a star map that translates from the galactic view down through the systems to an orbital perspective and finally down to a local map. It's a huge endeavor and will likely come along with a mini-map and interior map showcase as well. What I hope we also see here are the gameplay elements linked to the map, things that point more towards fleshed out exploration gameplay. I also hope we see filtering, searching, and manual point manipulation when we see the map itself. I also would love to look at the new Mobiglass and the several different apps that are being developed for it, but that's a bit of a stretch here. The key things I'd look for in this panel are a new star map, local map, AR markers, and methods of interacting with or filling out these assets with discovered info. On to day 2. After recovering from the previous night's debacles, the first panel on day 2 starts again at 11 AM, this time focused on the character. Normally I would be really excited for this because the character features team is one of the most ingrained in Squadron 42 development, which would mean some interesting polished stuff. Given the description though, this is pointing more towards the aesthetic side of things. The new outfit's coming with more outlaw-focused gameplay and locations, which we've seen on ISC and read about in monthly reports for far too long. The next version of the character creator will be shown off, likely still deep in integration in Squadron 42, but still offering what we hope is a AAA quality, polished character customization experience. We'll also finally get an update on hair in the game, something we've been keen on since the infamous introduction of Tisha Pacheco with her hair almost 4 years ago now. So this panel's going to have some pretty key updates for players, but as far as gameplay features go, this panel will likely be less exciting. Next will be our FPS update at noon. This pillar is obviously pretty important to the feel of the game, so I think there's a lot we may see here that will interest most players, but you never know what they'll fit in. To start off, the description clues us into pretty clear features. Improved combat AI, likely in a more natural scenario than last year. Weapon handling will get a showcase. This will likely include actual animation as we customize weaponry from the first-person view, and we'll also see improved animations with weapons. Seamless and tactile interactions point towards the same interaction system we saw last year. I would also expect to see a return spotlight on platforming techniques like mantling, ladder functionality, and ledge grabs. Not big features, but they fit here. And while it's not listed here, I believe this is where we will see the FPS radar and scanning features in action. Many of these features were expected to move from Squadron 42 to the PU this year, per the letter from the chairman, and haven't. Given the silence surrounding them, the company should have an adequate update to give on these features by now, and good news regarding their inclusion into the game. I do also hope this showcases some of the improvements to other parts of first-person play, hand-to-hand combat, interactables, EVA, prop animations, and the physical storage and locker systems. I'm also really hoping we finally see the functionality to easily remove our helmet and wear it at our hip. I am very tired of leaving my helmet at the space station. If there's one thing we all learn at some point in Star Citizen, it's how to fly. And that's actually changed quite a bit as the game developed. This year, the final model is coming into focus, and there are a few initiatives all coinciding to make it happen. Taking place at 1 PM, the panel is described as being about space and atmospheric flight, combat, and interaction. Combat is likely pointing to an update on master modes, but space flight in general does have me wondering if we'll see more information on quantum boost or the new quantum travel method. Atmospheric flight is likely pointing to control surfaces, but an overall look at the feature in combination with the engineering-driven heat system would give us a very good look at what the future of atmospheric flight could look like. I just released a video about how this combination of features will reintroduce hover mode that I'll leave down below, but I'd tune in for this panel for sure because the info we get here is gonna affect everyone. And just to leave them here, I do hope this goes into the more technically distinct methods of flight. Ship carriers like the Liberator, tractor beams like the SRV, VTOL flight, and so on. I could also see EVA being bundled in here as a form of space traversal, but that's a bit less likely. So this is the Pyro panel. Just like last year, rather than focusing entirely on Pyro, they've relegated it down to just 1 or 2 panels at CitizenCon and drawn more attention to the update 4 branch of features. In this 3 PM panel, what we know is we'll be seeing the living conditions and environments of a system safe from the UEE and the megacorps of Hurston, Crusader, ArcCorp, and Microtech. This is the most ambiguous description of the show. This could be a rather bland visual tour of the various location archetypes in Pyro. The UGFs, outposts, caves, stations, and possibly the monolithic planetary features between them. This could also be an impressive in-depth look at how things actually function differently based on the distance and lack of proximity to the military and large forces of law. How will players get fuel in Pyro? What decides whether they can land at a space station? How do they know what a station offers? And are the various warring factions in the system going to have updated mechanics so we can stay better informed? Pyro is not meant to be just another set of planets with the same gameplay as what we've been playing. There are currently 3 jump point locations in Stanton. There's a reason we're going to Pyro first. This system is meant to prove out what a lawless experience is like, and given all the time that's been put into this system, I'm expecting to hear about some distinct differences here. That is a bit of a combination of my hopes and expectations, because I really do believe if it's just that visual tour of the system, we're going to be very, very disappointed. So this panel could be really hit or miss. From high up in orbit to the surface of our planets and deep into the underground, we delve into new interactions, missions, and gameplay, and more coming to the Star Citizen universe at all levels. This 4 PM panel seems like an all-encompassing look at the play space going forward, typical missions, and typical locations. Underground facilities seem like an obvious choice, but maybe also caves. And how about building interiors? A feature that we've seen at the more white box stage earlier this year that will definitely shape the universe in the future. Outposts could also be a location that shows up here, as well as space stations high up in orbit, but moons are also in orbit, and sometimes so are asteroids. Asteroid facilities have been a mystery on the progress tracker for some time now, and while we've seen a couple of possible teases, still nothing of much detail. Now, given the description and the title, this is sure to be a showcase of what future missions might look like. And while I think we'll get some conceptual high-level looks at missions of the future, this could also be a great place for them to slip in a look at Bounty Hunting V2, which will give us a good show of the new mobiGlas tracking app, virtual AI, and AI informants. Both of those possibilities are still up in the air though. I could be entirely wrong. This could also be just a segmented panel that shows us refining, salvaging, and crafting work that comes to the game soon. I certainly hope we see some seemingly disappeared initiatives like hacking, but we're going to have to wait and see a lot on this one as well. I think if you're interested in gameplay, this will be one of the best panels to look at, so don't miss this last one. And finally, after this last panel, the closing ceremony immediately starts at 4:45. This will likely run for 30 to 45 minutes, and will be where important messaging about the future of the game is likely. While all these panels besides the first are really focused on features, this last panel will probably be a talk focused on the overall direction of Star Citizen. Even if the first panel does contain it, we'll undoubtedly get an update on the road to server meshing here, and also what comes after, including dynamic server meshing, dynamic islands, further player count increases, and whatever's next. What may also show up here is messaging about Squadron 42. While I don't expect there to be too much, we know there is definitely going to be an update due to recent messaging from the company. But between the game being pulled from the store earlier this year, tons of messaging talking about polishing and approaching beta stage with Squadron 42, and reshoots and other final stage actions being taken, there's a wide-reaching belief that Squadron 42 will see a release window announcement at this event. I think shadow dropping Squadron 42 would be amazing, but a release date at this stage would be a no turning back moment for the company. Either way, this closing ceremony will have some pretty important news in it, and will likely be the panel that decides whether this event is a success for a lot of people. If you want my advice, set your expectations low. Everything I've mentioned will likely be shown, but don't expect the things you see to blow away any other AAA game on their own. Consider how they might work in combination. I would go into it expecting to leave with a solid understanding of what Star Citizen 4.0 will be. We'll see pre and post 4.0 features, but the focus will be on setting that expectation, with a much clearer goal for the game. CIG seems set on shipping 4.0 as a mini Star Citizen experience. This CitizenCon will be their chance to sell that. Between the major systems like engineering, the explanation of the Star Engine, a look at years-long initiatives like the Star Map and new quantum travel experience, and news of Squadron 42, this will likely be the most impressive CitizenCon content-wise we've seen. But a real win for the company will be proving their two main goals are in good shape and achievable. Those goals being a server-meshed persistent universe with fun gameplay and a completed Squadron 42. For players, I think there's going to be a lot of wins. The aforementioned star map, better interaction, improved character building, a better flight model, and more features are going to improve the game, and many of them will be seen for the first time here. The big question is whether CIG can deliver them in good time, like the looting and inventory features of 2021, or leave us searching, like AI ships from 2019. If you want to keep up with the show, I'll be there on the ground posting content from the show floor, and I'll be following up with feature highlights in the following weeks afterward. Consider subscribing here for Star Citizen coverage, and check out my second channel, Space Tomato 2, for longer form content and my podcasts. Remember to get in on our Mrs. Tomato special giveaway for one of 2 copies of the game with a pink ship, and thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something new in this one, and I'll catch you in the next.